Good afternoon, Patrick Dwyer and Greg Pool here. Today we're going to talk about side bets, why we're overweight semiconductors for the long term.
So everyone knows semiconductors. They're going into chips, fabs, AI servers, data centers. And most people right now, when they think about it, they think of NVIDIA. But the truth is semis aren't a one-stop story. The whole ecosystem is expanding. The winners are broadening out. And that's why we feel the entire index deserves an overweight, not just today, but for the next 1, 3, and 5 years.
Yeah, I think of semiconductors as really the new utilities of the digital age. Every connected device, from phones and cars to refrigerator to a factory floor, everything's got a chip in it. And governments now treat semis the way they treated defense firms. They're critical to security, independence, and growth. That's why billions of dollars of subsidies are flowing into the space. Incentives and long-term supply commitments are happening right now. So owning the index means we don't have to guess the next superstar. We capture the structural growth of the entire sector just as essential and just as government-backed as defense contractors in the last century.
Taking a look at the index, NVIDIA, which is the leader, it's about 20% of the index. But there's other incredible companies that we get exposure to: Taiwan Semi, Broadcom in the memory space, Micron, semi-cap equipment. We have Lam, ASML. These are all captured here in the index. And I think there's a couple of things about the performance that are notable. I think the first is, look, if you had picked NVIDIA, then of course you absolutely won. But if you had picked Intel, you really lost. And so having a broad bet on an entire space that we believe in, we think is a good strategy. And the second is the semiconductor index has outperformed the S&P on all the time periods we're looking at, year to date, 1, 3, 5 years. But also it's outperformed the majority of the individual names, largely because there often is one huge winner, which if you own the index, you get exposure to.
Absolutely. Now, clearly, there are risks here too. Valuations are already high, and we certainly expect that there will be big pullbacks in this space every so often, as expectations are getting very high. Supply chains and materials remain very tight, so we can always have problems there. Obviously, geopolitical risk around Taiwan and China. Technological shifts could upend today's leaders. That's always a risk with technology. And then there's macro risks like rates, inflation, and then, of course, demand cycles.
What's our conclusion? The conclusion is the demand tailwinds here are undeniable in a whole lot of channels, AI, autonomous, 5G. With governments backing the industry, we think semis are one of the best long-term side bets an investor can take. And Pat, why don't you talk about how we've transitioned from having a side bet in an ETF to now doing it within Vise?
Yeah. So before Vise, for when I was back at Merrill, we used the semiconductor ETFs, which are fine. They're 35 basis points. But now with Vise, AI-driven direct indexing, we can actually overweight semis at less than half the cost of an ETF while optimizing taxes on every single position because you own each position in your own account. So if we wanted to sell NVIDIA, we could sell NVIDIA and keep all the rest of the names. And so that's a huge uptick for you, and it costs less, and you're getting daily tax loss harvesting.
Well, thanks for listening. That's our thesis on the semis and how we use Vise direct index to express that.
Thank you.